Shalom Balance, CFR Network, CFR News. Coming back one more again with that part 2, part 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. That reasonability bills with the sibling Tarnoon. Welcome back, sibling. Let's get straight into the meat and let's feed the brain, man.
All right, let me go back to, let me finish. All right, so we on like one-sided racism. I wanted to finish that off real quick.
Okay.
Page 186. I'm just trying to run through it, get back to it real quick. 186. I'm in the right book. Yeah, okay. I see what happened.
So trustly the squad stream and listeners have had a good deep dive and have absorbed the first couple parts of this build. It's simple, but for verification itself, you need to go and do some cross research. So this should be the encapsulation and the capstone to the build.
All right, I'm almost there. 186. Why is this thing so big? Let's see. Okay, here we go. All right, so this is coming out of book 2. You can see my screen?
Nah, I ain't going up yet.
You sharing it?
No, we can't see nothing yet, sibling.
I gotta share it or you? Oh, I gotta share it.
Yeah,
yo, I'm bugging out. Hold up. Okay, hold up. My bad, y'all. Hold on. I'm sorry. Okay, here we go.
Yeah, man. Here we go.
All right, here we go. All right. So this is the one-sided racism. It's coming out of Nature Book 2, page 186, number 270. And it said, one-sided racism is an abomination definitely forbidden the same way each time that conditions are the same. Equal racism is the human races treating each other as each race wishes to be treated. Equal racism requires and demands equal recognition and equal respect for all ethnic races and from all human races. Equal racism demands equal treatment and equal provision under the laws of the society or nation. One-sided racism is the opposite of equal racism. One-sided racism is oppression and suppression of one ethnic race upon another ethnic race or ethnic races. One-sided racism is diabolical and violates the human and also natural rights of other human races and thereby transgresses the laws of nature. In a society of multiple human races where one-sided racism is practiced, one race uses one-sided racism to counteract the one-sided races of another human race. One-sided racism becomes equal racism, in this case, as an equalizing force. So that's the only time you see equal racism, when both sides are demanding to be treated fairly. But it's in the negative because one side is mostly or members of the one side that's oppressing the other side. And because of, let's say with the Caucasian race in America, because the government is Caucasian ran, their leaders are oppressing us, and then we get into it with the little people. You see what I'm saying? We don't get into it with the actual lawmakers. So it becomes equal in the sense that both sides are arguing about they not being treated fairly. But the difference between us and them is their race is the aggressor. And so because their race is the aggressor on multiple levels, it causes us who sees that to beef with them, because you can't get to the ones that's, creating this whole thing over generations and generations and stuff like that. So that's why you got a lot of us, you hear them screaming white privilege and this, that, and the third, because they benefiting whether they know it or not. They still benefit. You understand? And the problem is, as long as we keep arguing about, we need this, we need that, and then a lot of them saying, well, we didn't really do this to y'all, or we understand, or we want to help. It's just so much damage being done that it can't, until people see real justice, it's never gonna change into a situation that's gonna be helpful. So that's just showing you, equal racism and the negative when both sides are just saying, listen, we want to be treated this way and not be bothered and harmed, and we saying the same thing, but the root of the thing is it'll never happen in a society of multiple races. Because because the cycle we just came out of did so much dirt. So a lot of people is really fed up with living amongst each other. So we need to be separated. But when you in a society like this, the laws and rules are not enforced equally and fairly, so it'll never work. And that's why I'm saying it has to go into something else. All right, and it said one-sided racism is an abomination to human and natural rights as well as intelligence. Let it be remembered. All right, so that's dealing with that section. Now I want to go into giving an example of some of the laws of equal racism. Some things people can look at. All right, you can still see my screen?
True indeed.
Okay, cool. All right, so this is the noun ball count 4, written by Afro Uno as Nubun Rakapata back in 1972, and he called this liberation information. All right, so we're gonna go into what's called the 9 Nubun guides, which Nubun is another name for Nubian. I think you can find that in like Sudan and stuff like that. Is my whole face showing?
Your hat's cut off.
My hat? Okay, cool. But you can see my face though, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. I'm just making. All right, so we're gonna go to the 9 Nubun guides. This is very important. This is what anybody that's other than African can follow these same guides in their own country after all of this crap is over. All right, now these called the 9 Nubun guides. All right, so in this booklet, we Nubun scientists will only take the space to outline the 9 Nubun guides instead of detailing them. The 9 Nubun guides are those word formulas, motivation, activation, which prepare Nubians to success individually and as a race. In other words, any Nubian who has the durability and intelligence to adhere to the word formulas called the 9 Nubun guides will survive through the ages and be successful. In paragraphs 8 and 9 of count 1, we mentioned the words Ethiopian and Nubian means the same. A Nubian is a woolly-haired Ethiopian, so when we state Nubian, we mean a person or persons with genuinely woolly hair, meaning a genuinely kinky hair. All right, so this is the first one. I promise to preserve self at all times to the best of my knowledge, wisdom, and understanding and ability. That's rule number 1. Like they say, the law of preservation. But the law of preservation, we talking about as a race, as one organism. All right? Because usually when you hear that term, the law of preservation, they only individualize it to one person. But when you do this as a race, right, things can become more easier. All right? I promise to have sexual relations with no one but the opposite sex of my own kind. That's 2. Because in order for you to preserve yourself, you have to be able to duplicate yourself, right, with your own kind of the opposite sex. Correct? All right. So those are the first 2 laws of self-preservation. You have to follow that. 3. I promise to eat and drink only those gases, liquids, and solids which will be more beneficial than harmful to my mental and physical selves, to the best of my knowledge, wisdom, and understanding and ability. All right, so this is very important that this stuff is followed. All right.
So give some more detail in that respect. Then, so are we still talking about maybe still eating meat and all that kind of stuff, or is there specific types of meat that you should eat and not eat?
Yeah, the thing is, it's meat eating time in the bottom half of existence, so that's not gonna stop. But if a person is able to eat meat that hasn't been tainted by the industry, or if you growing, if you raising your own animals and stuff like that, that would be better than doing it from the store and stuff like that. Unless you know the people in the store, you know that they're not doing anything extra to the animals, that's different. But yeah, because a lot of people are gonna eat meat for the next couple of million years, that's not gonna stop. So, but long as it's like he said, it says only those things which will be more beneficial than harmful. And then it said to my mental and physical self. So a lot of people tell you that, you know, you are what you eat. So it depending on the mind of the individual, how much knowledge they got, and if they know they eat certain animals and they take on a certain characteristic, like over here in America or other places, they kill the animals and the animals die in a type of fear, and they pump them up with stuff. So the fear goes into the meat and everything else, so that makes it harmful just of that alone. So that's why most people who eat meat and who understands that rather try to take an animal out with less stress as possible. You know, so but yeah, whatever it is, like I said, it depends on the person's or group of persons' reasonability when it comes to this. Me specifically, like I said, if you eat meat, it's best you know that where the animal come from and who touched it and stuff like that.
Right source from and all that, yeah.
Right.
I hear that.
All right. 4, I promise to be a Nubun first to the best of my knowledge, wisdom, and understanding and ability. Then whatever else I wish to be. So again, this goes back to, you know, putting your race first and you first, as your race is one. Since everybody is saying the same thing, then you whatever you want to be after that, meaning, you know, if you want to be a teacher, if you want to, but you understand, like Marcus Garvey said, be an African first. You gotta be Nubun first.
Yeah.
But the universal knowledge have to be there. Like we said in the last segment, the only way it can be equality, the first stage of equality had to be universal knowledge. That means knowledge of persons, places, and things, who, what, when, how, where, nature of, purpose of, beginning of, and ending of. Once all of that is on the table, where everybody on the planet knows who came from and what order and all of that stuff, who's good and who's bad and all of that, once everybody can see that, then it won't be no problem. You understand? It won't be no problem then, because
how are we going to get to that point?
But these are the see, we're in the sun cycle now. The justice forces is removing all of these negative blockages that was going on for the last 6,000 years when the moon cycle was in, and the Caucasian race in particular was running the gambit. So now nature and moved into the sun cycle. The sun is going to heat up. The planet is heating up. A magnetic field is moving, and so a lot of stuff is going to happen to move people out of their places. And the book talk about that. A lot of the evil people that's running stuff, especially the elite in the Caucasian race, is being dealt with by other countries. The force of nature is going to run them back into the caves of Europe. The real albino ones, the evil ones that's sitting behind the so-called 1%, those are the ones that nobody's ever seen. Those will no longer be the state ruling. So it's a lot of levels of this stuff that have to remove them in order for all oppressed peoples to be able to have access to all of the universal information, which Noon is the universal science of all the worlds. So what we've been reading, this is the basics. But when the force of nature make all these other races, like the Vatican, I read the other day, they said the Vatican got 50 miles of information that run deep under the Vatican. So they got 50 miles, according to certain stuff, of the world's information sitting there hiding it. So that stuff got to be released so people can know what the heck was removed and put out of place. Once you look at that and say, okay, this is the right order. The black race was here first. The black race did this. We gave them culture and this, that, and the third. And once they realized that the cycles, all this was destined to happen. So it's not like that part wasn't written in our information. It was. So we predicted all of this stuff a long time ago. Again, the Caucasian and the rest of mankind all work together to hide these things from the African. Because long as you keep misinformation out there, people won't know what to do. All right. 5, I promise to advocate non-knowledge and adhere to non-knowledge to the best of my scientific information, wisdom, and understanding ability. Noon science is that non-information. This is the scientific information that you see me putting out. These books are based upon non-mind Nubun and scientific information. So this is the foundation that we're gonna have to get back to in order to understand that. I promise to treat people of other races the same way they treat me, to the best of my knowledge, wisdom, understanding, ability. Again, if you don't have the knowledge, you don't know how far to not go or how far to go. And because of the religion, and because religion is racist, like Islam and Judaism and Christianity, all these books believe that one group is better than everybody else. That comes with prejudices. You see what I'm saying? And racism. And everybody knows that Judaism purports slavery, Christianity purports slavery, and Islam purports slavery. And each group of those particular three major religions of today still not only enslave people mentally, but enslave people spiritually. So once we realize what religion is, all of it, right? Big, small, or whatever, and pantheism, which birth religion, once we understand all of that, then we know that each human race is different. You need all these things to know. So you can be like, okay, yeah.
Let me ask you one thing, or let me push back on one thing. Where does it say where does Judaism or Christianity condone slavery?
Like in the book of Leviticus and stuff like that, they had slaves and servants and
see, but okay. This is where I want to get into. So a slave, servant, and a bondman or bond.
Right, all of that.
Those are different things, right?
In a way, but it people think it's different based upon the treatment. Like you may have it, like they'll say a slave is different from an indentured servant or a bondman. Yeah. But the thing is this: you got somebody under your power that has the ability to choose like you.
So what's the difference with, okay, if we use that same logic, and I totally get what you're saying.
Right.
What's the difference with today's working for a corporation or for a person?
It's not a difference. It's that we bonded, we're bondmen, and we're slave based upon, let's say you could be a slave to a job and not really a slave, but then you can go into the social security numbers and the birth certificate, you're a bondman and a slave there too.
Yes.
So yes. It's still applicable. And the thing is, all of these people believe in the Bible. When you break down their corporations, and like when you go into law, and they have things called they take, and even in medical field, they take oaths of faith. It's God in there somewhere. All that stuff come back to the Bible, because the country is Judeo-Christian. Yes. But all of the places that the Caucasian rules, his power is the Bible. That's why everywhere they went, and so they colonized, whatever that's a clean word, the Bible's right there. They would have never got nowhere without that Bible and different versions of it and the spirit forces that help them. But just say to have something physical to look at for a mundane person who said, well, I don't believe in spirits and all that. We all can agree that the Bible played a strategic and anchored role in mentally enslaving people.
Oh yeah, listen, it's just like every tool. It's how you apply, like the example I always give, knife and fork. Mm-hmm. We use those utensils to cut and eat our food. Mm-hmm. Those same tools you could be using to defend yourself or to attack someone else with. Mm-hmm. It's all about how you apply, the said tool.
Mm-hmm. It's the same thing. It's like I said, we keep it. That's why I say knowledge. But that's why he said, be able to. You can't. Again, is that I treat the people the best to my knowledge. So if you got right knowledge, correct information, the top notch, meaning you got everything about origins, where the universe comes from, the things in it, the people and the places, and once you got all that, then the wisdom comes in. Be like, okay, like the difference. If you know the difference between a poisonous snake and a non-poisonous snake, you would behave differently than a person who don't know the difference. So once you got that right knowledge of person, place, and the things, you then wisdom will tell you how to move accordingly. So then the understanding comes, you understand that you have to, based upon the wisdom, based upon the knowledge. Then you say, okay, so I know you like this, then I have to do this in order to make sure I protect myself and kind.
Indeed.
And you have to have the ability to do it. That means you got to have military, you got to control your own resources, the same way other countries do when they in their right mind. They make sure they got knowledge on everybody else. That means that's why they take all this intel, they do all this secret spying and looking at everybody, trying to figure things, looking at all of that. And once they get all of that knowledge, then they use their wisdom to maneuver, and they got understanding of why they doing it, because they say, I got to make sure we stay preserved at all times. And then they have to make sure they got the ability to carry it out, whether it's the Caucasian, the Mongolian race, the Arab race, whoever it is that's in a state of power and able to make sure they race stays, or they group of people stay thriving. They have to have knowledge, wisdom, understanding, and the ability to carry out those things. All right. 7, I promise to uphold justice and rightness at all times to the best of my knowledge, wisdom, understanding, and ability. Again, justice is having the power to punish and reward. And that means you got to be in a state of rightness at all times in order for justice to be right. This is why America and the world at large have these problems, because these people they promise to uphold justice, but we know that's a lie. They uphold injustice. It sounds good on paper, but the actions shows you what time it is. And because the legal system is tied up into religion, where they believe in God and all this stuff, but they don't follow the positive things in there about doing others that you want done unto you. So if Kumo can go and kill 16,000 people by order of the government and putting these people in these old folks home, they dying of COVID, and people going in the hospital and they dying of something else and they putting COVID out. They not doing that. That's showing you that their system is dedicated to upholding injustice, anti-rightness at all times to the best of their knowledge, wisdom, understanding, and ability. And this is why we see what we see. These is anti. So justice has to be, you have to be in line with justice, and you have to have laws in place and people to enforce rightness at all times. All right? But we know that it can't be done with other races. It can't be done. And this is evident just looking at in America. That's why they say it's two laws in America, or there's two Americas, white America and black America. And it doesn't mean that all white people believe or side with that, but the point is it's there. And that the system favors white people over black people, even if they still lock up or kill their own. But if a black person and a white person do the same crime, even if that white person is poor, the black person still gonna catch more time. That shows you by nature they are incapable of creating laws to do the right thing. That's what that means. You got too much of a record to show that. Correct?
Agreed.
All right.
The proof's in the pudding. The history is there. The cases are there. The prisons are there.
There you go. The prisons are there, everything. As soon as they let us out of physical bondage, after Abraham Lincoln, after they reconstructed the Constitution, they start building prisons. So you telling me why y'all didn't have prisons before then? Because it was crime going on. But soon as they let us out, they start making us, let us physically free bondage. They start building prisons. But why? We not the dangerous people on the planet. But that's showing you that hate and dedication that the spirits in their race has. That they overlooked all of the crimes that they were committing against us and other people on this continent. They built no prisons. Even in the Wild Wild West days, a person can come into the town and just start shooting, killing people, and you still, instead of arresting them a lot of times, they want to have gun battles. Meet me at, sundown at the middle of the town instead of arresting people for doing the wrong they were doing, going out taking other people's lands and moving further and further out, cutting down the trees and taking people's land and killing and raping. They was criminals from the jump, but you didn't build no prisons then. But as soon as you let the people you subdued free, well, there's no history of black people running around America doing what they was doing over here colonizing, right? There's no history of us doing that in mass. So why are you building prisons? What you was afraid of? Even to date, black people haven't did nothing too funny. We had, little rebellions over the years, but you didn't see us come together like they was coming together with whole armies going from state to state before they were states and just taking people in and killing and setting up, building whole towns. Nobody's doing that. All right? So these are the things we have to do. I promise to fight hard for liberation and freedom for the Nubun race, and when it is liberated and free, I will work just as hard to keep our liberty and freedom preserved to the best of my knowledge, wisdom, understanding, and ability. Consequently, I promise that before my physical death, I'll arrange for my lifeless body to be cremated and the remains distributed at the roots of an evergreen tree or some other suitable place willed by the deceased. And the reason why Afro Uno stated that is because the evergreen tree and pine trees is where turpentine oil comes from, and it neutralizes the negative in a person. So we take rectified turpentine in droplets over here, and it neutralizes the negative spirit part, and then cultivates.
Rewind. So you take what?
Rectified turpentine oil.
That's for oral consumption then.
Yes. Right. Even though a lot of them, the scientists try or doctors try to say don't take it, but we was using this way back in slavery times. Whenever it was the cure-all back then.
And where do you find this? Is this in like house stores or whatever?
Yeah, you could get it from pharmacies and or go online. All of that. Hold on, I'm gonna show you what it looks. Hold on. All right, this is turpentine oil, if you can see it.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. So we just take a couple of drops and put it in some water or some juice, and then we use sulfur. Sulfur is volcano ash, and they sell that here too. So we take the sulfur is yellow, and we mix it with grandma molasses. And you can see this.
Okay.
So we take a couple of spoonfuls of how much sulfur you want to use. You put a grandma molasses into it, and then you just stir it up till it becomes thick, like peanut butter. And so you can just take as much as you want. It's good for clearing out the parasite. The reason why you put the sulfur in it, the grandma molasses, to add a little sweetness to it. The parasites is drawn to the sweetness, and then the sulfur burns it, and it also burns in the blood, which is another purification of the spirit. Okay, so these are the scientific things that we're taking to ingest. Again, it's for spirit purification. It works with the body. It helps the the blood. And oxygen too. Sulfur is good with oxygen, so it helps oxygenate the blood as well when you take it. So these are some of the scientific things you have to know about spirits and how to get the best out of the type of spirit that you got. So that's what that's about. And like I said, so when you, and that's why we.
Do you know where that's? Where is that? Do you know where the sulfur is sourced from?
It's different places, but a lot of it comes from like Africa. They got a lot of volcanoes that they go around the world, and it's yellow. When if you ever go look at the when they go to those sulfur pits, I mean people use them. They got sulfur spas. They take sulfur baths. You know, they all of that good stuff.
I've seen it. Still, I know you're talking about.
Yeah, so you know we got big bags of it. You know, so we take that stuff on a daily, and it helps you use the bathrooms like a natural laxative too. The sulfur. It's some great benefits from.
Sounds like it.
Yeah, it really is. So you have to know about that about the spirit side of things to get everything together. All right, so let's see. And the remains distributed at the roots of an evergreen tree or some other suitable place will by the deceased. Also seriously promised by Nubun forces of nature by this ninth god to maintain the promise of all 9 Nubun guides for an existence in liberty, freedom, preservation, well-being, and success, with the understanding that if I fail to keep my promise to the best of my knowledge, wisdom, understanding, and ability, I will soon join the physical dead. So what we're doing is we're taking an oath to the forces of nature that if we break any of these laws to preserve our race, not to hurt other races, to get the best knowledge we can and distribute it, right? And stand for justice and equality and all this good stuff, not to mess with other people, races, and harm them unless it's in form of self-defense. That's common sense. But not to harm people for no reason, not to be the aggressor, not to reproduce with nobody except the opposite of our own sex. So that kills homosexuality off the top, because you can't preserve your race if you're messing with the same race. And it's not fair that regular people or heterosexuals produce children in order for them to feel like I need to go and be able to adopt. No, you chose a life physically to practice to not reproduce yourself, then you shouldn't be allowed to use other people's children they reproduce for themselves. That means people that choose to be who they are, let them be who they are, don't harm them, but they have to be put in a place where y'all just gonna die out like the dinosaurs. That's it. That's the choice you chose. That's what people don't understand. America is pushing all of this stuff to allow people choosing a life of death. Because if you can't reproduce, you can reproduce, but you choose not to use your sperm or your womb to reproduce, then you should have access to other people who's using their body to reproduce themselves to say, oh, I want to adopt or have a surrogate. Nah, this is what you chose. Let your life run its course. Holla, and that's it. And that is all this extra stuff hurting and harming people. No, y'all want to destroy your bodies, destroy your body, because that means you don't respect the fact that you was given a reproductive system. So don't use it, and don't use other people's the benefits of it. That makes sense. Then people would choose a lot better. America is trying to give people the options, other options.
Yeah.
Outside of themselves. So we talking about race preservation here. I'm not coming from personal and all this other crap. This is about race preservation. And you'll never find nothing in ancient laws that tells you people messing with the same sex is still here today. If you put a bunch of gay people on an island by themselves and come back 50 years later, nobody's gonna be there.
Facts.
100 years later, nobody's gonna be there. So that means you chose a way to go to death, then die in peace. You just can't use other people's bodies and organs to continue on something that you got a body that works.
What about the island of Lesbos and Parthenon something Genesis? You know what I'm talking about?
You said in Genesis?
Parthenon something Genesis.
I think I heard that Parthegenesis.
When it was alleged, I heard the honourable Dr. Dalbert Blair speak on this. I've heard, I think another elder, Rising Paradise, obviously as well, to Dr. Dalbert Blair, and to bring it up to modern context. Natural Tahuti, and then Brother Poelites.
And York them, they always was teaching that the women could give birth. That's a lie. That's a lie. All you got to do is say prove it.
This is it, man. Holding the wombs up to the sun, and that was impregnating them.
Yeah, that's what they doing. Again, that came from. I told you in Noon Science, it tells you the sun is the one that impregnated all of the planets. The sun is the king, the creator, the father, and the husband to all these planets, which are female. The sun is male. I told you that the sun, when our ancestors came in, the pygmy gods, they came up from the 9 ether clay as eggs after she was impregnated with 9 ether rays. And once the heat hit a certain temperature, she produced the eggs and they came up. That's what they talking about. They just lost the real knowledge of that. You can't hold a female up to the sun and get pregnant. That's foolishness.
Folly.
That is all you gotta say, prove it. I don't read to me a fairy tale. Prove it.
Yeah.
It can't be done. That's the thing. It only happened when the orbs were giving birth. And human beings were nowhere to be found on the planet. That gift came to us after our ancestors procreated us sexually, the African race, and then we took on the sexual burden and a responsibility of reproducing ourselves versus the planet used to do it herself. She's in a state of menopause now.
Right. Without diverting too far away from the build, was the original man and woman around when the dinosaurs were around?
Our ancestors, according to the nature books, the pygmy gods were there, and they only lived 6,000 years into evolution. So 18 million years ago, the first 6,000 years, they were there, and they died out because the dinosaurs. And Quipu did a video on it, but Afro said that they died out because the moon had water on it, and the mist that it had once the sun hit, because the water came from out of the ring of fire over there by Indonesia. When the planet gave birth to the moon came out of the ring of fire. Just look it up, and I think that's in the Pacific Ocean.
Is that the Mariana Trench you're talking about?
That's it. The moon came from that, and it took water when it came out of the earth from her center. So when it came out of the Mariana Trench, it took all that water with it. And for 36 million years, the moon rotated and had water on it. And when the sun exploded with 6 ether, it hit the sun, the moon. The moon was guarding Earth. This is why planet Earth is still alive, because the moon took the bulk blast of the nuclear fallout from 6 ether, and it basically killed the moon scientifically. The moon stopped rotating on its axis, and then the water came down to Earth into that spot. So what the Mariana Trench, that area, is where the moon pulls on the water to this day, because it wants its water back. And that mist of water mixed with the vegetation, and the earth already had 6 ether clay with those dinosaurs already pre-packaged. Once 6 ether came, after she put the eggs up, and the 6 ether clay, the 6 ether sun rays hit it, did the same thing, but those, instead of the pygmy gods coming up on Lake Victoria, these type of monsters or moon stars came up, and other animals. The pygmy gods came back as other races of animals. This is why ancient Kemet, they say that Bes or Ta was the creator of God and man. Our race was called Ta and Kemet, and our ancestors, the pygmy gods, died and came back. So they was gods, then they died and came back as men. They procreated us. We was here with them before they died. Then they died and came back as animals.
So if we was here at the same time as the pygmy gods.
Right.
Was he still Nubun at that point? So what was he called at that point?
Say it again.
What was we called at that point?
They was called, and according to Alpha Uno, they was called 9 ether tar at first. And then once 6 ether came, the chemicals changed. Then they became 6 ether tar. Then they had organic sex for the first time. And then they had their descendants. Of course, we would be called evolutionary tar, meaning we grew tall because of evolution made things grow bigger. So they had a couple of generations, and like right now, you got pygmies to this day over in Africa that haven't grown any taller. So they would be more closer to the pygmy gods because the way they live at in their diet, they didn't, that part of evolution in the water and things like that didn't reach where they're at. So it didn't affect their growth. So they stayed the same size.
Suspended animation of sorts.
Kinda, because like I said, like the book say, because of where they live at and their location in Africa, in that diet, they didn't go out eating all the stuff that nature was changing. That's why you look into evolution in science, it's a lot of things. They say, oh, this didn't usually originally look like this. This looked like this so long ago. So it's an evolutionary change, and in Noon, evolution is the deterioration of things over a long period of time, and also it gets bigger because when you're in the death cycle, when you die like a body, it expands.
It bloats, yeah.
Right. So the planet, the universe is still expanding. That means it's still in a state of death. So things got bigger from the time of evolution started to now. There's stuff in the ocean they still ain't said is what's down there or found.
Yeah.
It's bigger things down there than we really know about.
Yeah,
and that's
we already know the thing. Simply, listen, the oceans are undiscovered. They're virtually, I think was it 1% of the oceans have been sort of like charted,
right,
and messed about with.
Yeah, they probably got stuff they can detect what's down there, but they ain't prepared to go and mess with it. You talking about playing around in pure darkness and cold and pressure and all of that?
Yeah. Pressure is one thing, the cold is the next thing, the pitch blackness is the next. Yeah, man. You already know, man.
Yes.
This is a mad thing. This is absolutely mad thing. But continue, sorry, Sibley.
All right, so that's cool. So now, we're going to go into what happens when you break these laws. These are some, because that's what need to be explained a little bit. So let's go to introduction to the Nature Book 1. All right. All right. Page 97. You can see the book.
We can see. This is advanced learning for the squadron and listeners. Then this is advanced learning, but at the same time, depending on your level of understanding, overstanding, or equal standing, this is simplistic. Again, you will have to do some additional research to make sure that you're approved. But it's quite straightforward. Right?
Yeah, people. Yeah, this is again, reasonability is something that's very important that you have to have in order for you to have again, equal standing or the basic. Everybody needs basic understanding or equal standing in order for them to catapult, and then doing their own research and your reasonability with the help of Nine Mind will catapult you into, like, all this is simple. Everything I've been reading is not gigantic words. The nature books are written in a basic standard language of English words, and all you got to do is research the words and then go out into the science and find it out and just look into your world. It's called the nature of nature because it talks about the nature of the one supreme being in space, matter, and time, and people have to go out and find these things and research. It takes a lot of time. It's you have to learn and take responsibility. All right, so this said, listen to reason. Laws are instruments and beings too that help keep organisms, including organizations, societies, civilizations, and cultures in order of sequence, and therefore when laws are disregarded or broken, there's breakdown in order, peace, and well-being for people. So here in Noon it tells that laws are beings as well. So that's a different thing than what most people understand. They don't know that laws are beings. All right, so that's very important. This holds true whether the laws be those of nature, natural law, or those of nature, people's man-made law. However, man-made law and activities may work against the reasonability and responsibility natural process of nature law. And this is what the cycles come in at. So when the Caucasian was ruling in the moon cycle, it was permitted for a time for them to do all the things that they done, no holds barred. Even though that goes against the reasonability of natural law. Natural law is stuff like you need oxygen to breathe, right? But you see them destroying the atmosphere, right? And polluting the air. Go ahead.
When I was coming up in the 80s, they were saying, World Wildlife Federation and Greenpeace and all them. Right. There was a big push in the 80s for that shit. And they were talking about there's 50 football pitches in the Amazon getting cut down every single day.
Right.
Now, that was some time ago, 80s to the 2021 year. And the Amazon forest is still there, but they're still cutting that shit down. How big was the Amazon forest for them to be cutting shit down for 50 fucking years? Football pitches, multiple football pitches every damn day.
Right, and they was lying. And I know the Amazon is one of the lungs of the earth, so yes. They know that if they cut too much, you already know what's gonna happen. And so, but the thing is, they still pushing that is the green this and the green that, and that's because of the Agenda 21 Sustainable Development Goals. But up and above that, the color of the bottom half is green, and that's why you see the symbols where we have the bottom with the Z in it. For Zupu is green, and the top half is red for Nupu. And the sun emanates its most powerful, potent power from the sun is gamma radiation. But the lights, and you can tell what color that's ruling is because the plants tell the truth. The color that the plant is maintaining the most is green. So that's the light that's being kept and reflected from the plants. And green is the color of 6 ether or gamma radiation. So in the top half, the plants are red, a dark reddish color, and that's infrared. Infrared is the top light source coming from the sun over 18 million years ago. So it's that, and it shows in the plant. The sky is purple, but the plants catch the infrared. Dude, it's so much stuff that people are not aware of. This is why universal knowledge have to be given, because then people be to deal with each other based upon that. Right now, it's not equal information, and this is why people are so ignorant and get took all the time. All right, so like I said, the man-made laws are working against natural law. That means they dig, like you said, tearing up the forest, they messing with the rivers, they taking plants and food and animals that don't grow over here and bringing them over there, putting them in the damn laboratory and cloning. That's messing with natural law. That's going against the reasonability, meaning the brain nukes that put Earth in the place that it's in and put all us natural cycles and natural laws that come in like the season. That's natural law. You know what I'm saying? Winter come in on time, spring come in on time, summer come in on time. But man can interfere with those natural law process and create a whole bunch of foolishness.
Geoengineering.
Right, all of that stuff, right.
Seeding and all that.
Right, so those happen in cycles versus natural law is how things work over longer periods of time. But those cycles are given for man to accomplish certain things, for races to accomplish certain things for a certain amount of time. Then the cycle changes, and whatever damage that was done, the earth will put it back in order. All right, with the help of the sun and the moon. All right, however, man-made laws and activities may work against the reasonability and responsibility of natural process of nature law. And when this occurs, nature eventually takes steps to correct that breach of law by disaster, disease, or some other suffering or death. So that right there tells you a lot. So sometimes when we think that man is doing stuff like tsunamis and winters, that ain't always the case. Nature has its own built-in cycles and protections that will fix it. Just like the body. If you do something or take something into the body that's not good for your body, that, you know, the immune system and all that stuff is there. It will fix it if you ain't overdoing it. So the earth is a bigger form, like it's an organism itself. All right, so it is in people's best interest to learn what the laws of nature are, accept them, and adhere to them. For the laws of nature are the supreme laws of the land and existence in all its infinity and eternity. Laws of other beings in nature are secondary to those of nature itself unless they are in accord with the nature of nature and nature's present cycle. The laws of nature can be broken or breached temporarily, but they will make the necessary corrections and prevail in time and space and matter forever and ever. Let it be remembered, always let it be known. So again, the last 6,000 years, going from 1962 back to the year 4038 BC roughly, whatever the Caucasian did, that cycle allowed it to happen. Even though it destroyed the earth, took out countless lives, even extincted certain human tribes and extincted certain animals and habitats, nature will replace it over time. So this is what the cycle and season term means when you hear me say that. When that's in the nature book, like you said, if the race of people is in tune with the nature at that cycle, then that means that part of nature is supporting them and allowing them to do all that they're doing. But it only lasts for 6,000 years. And then after that, changes come in. And the book tells you disaster, disease, or some other suffering or death, all that comes in there to fix the breaches. All right? Listen to reason. The law of a person, place, or thing is the nature of that person, place, or thing, and the nature of a person, place, or thing is the purpose for which that person or thing was created or came into being. The quality, aptitude, and power that make the laws of nature so binding and effective are their ability to help vacuum, balance matter, mentally, physically, chemically, ethereally, ethically, and spiritually, given time and energy, and do this indeed on a non-stop, continuous basis that is eternally in accord with the cycles of space, matter, and time, which are the laws, accomplishments, programs by nature. To put it another way, a law of nature, by definition, is a characteristic of nature that causes action, reaction, stop action, or non-action of a person or place or thing the same way each time that conditions are the same continuously. A law is consistent and constant the same way when given the same conditions. And again, the same way you will see the way darker peoples are treated, especially in this country. Most of the time, when you try to go and get a loan or get this or get this, it's a law. It's consistent that they're going to treat us differently and wrongly the most of the time. That's what a law is. Something that is consistent every time the conditions are the same. So that means every time I get ready to go to the bank, when the condition calls for me to get up money, or I need to buy a home, or I want to get another car, refinance, whatever the case, when that condition occurs, soon as I go to get it from somebody else, we can't do nothing for you. So that's what a law is. And people don't understand that. All right. This quality, ability, and standard constitute law, whether it be the natural or man-made law. Likewise, a law is not law without enforcement to the letter. and nature's laws are enforced automatically by cycle, energy, and time. Therefore, when man, okay, now let me add this too. So when people say for every action there's a equal opposite reaction, that's not true. When you are in a cycle that's against you, like we was with the Caucasian did all this dirt to us for years and years, they haven't paid back what they done because they was in a cycle of mercy and forgiveness. That'd be for another show. But mercy and forgiveness allows the justice to be temporarily stayed from the aggressor. And then when you forgive them, the one that's being oppressed, the justice that was meant for them transfers to the forgiver. All right? So we don't do mercy and forgiveness over here. And that's a reason why black people, one of the top 5 reasons black people in religion specifically do not see any justice, because you are transferring the guilt of the wrongdoer to you. Why are you forgiving them for doing something to you that if you did it to them, they'll tear you out the frame? That's because the ruling Caucasian knows that that's a trick. That's why whenever somebody attacks America or some other race of people, they do not go into mercy and forgiveness. Let's forgive, the 9/11 buildings. Let's forgive Pearl Harbor. Let's forgive what Hitler did. What happened when they got attacked? We about to go get busy. You ain't hear nobody say no mercy, forgiveness. Let's hold only those in religion, especially black people, follow this self-destructive, law-breaking rhetoric. And that's why every time we get beat and killed, we go out there want to march and all of that. Why is it that the ones who gave us Christianity, they don't lead by example? You do not see America, the rulers, the lawmakers, the military ones that push to go get things done. You do not see mercy and forgiveness. They don't talk about that. They talk about all this extra stuff out there and went over there and wiped you down, right? And beat you real good, killed you, took everything. Then they come in, let's be diplomatic. Let's set up a diplomacy. That's their form of mercy. Let's
sign some treaties.
Right.
Break every single. I'm sure someone cannot prove me wrong on this. Every single treaty that they have put forth, especially in the wilderness of North America, has been broken. Mm-hmm. Every single one of them.
Right. They have, all the way up to date. Even when Obama was in office, they had even before him, they signed a lot of stuff and then took it. And eventually, after decades, Obama had signed a whole bunch of bills and gave them a couple of $1 billion, but they had to split it up, I think, between 21 tribes, but they not giving you nothing. That's paper. It's useless. Because if I'm taking physical resources, which they took, rivers, lakes, and all of that, then I cut you a check. The money is going to go right back into the economy. You ain't going to be to keep that. So people don't understand that not only is the money worthless because it's a promissory note, a promise to pay something. So that means if I gave you $50 million for some land, I just gave you 50 million promises.
Exactly.
I ain't gave you really nothing. But this is the ignorance of not knowing how things work. This is bigger than just the IRS, and so we go to the origin. We deal with the source, so we understand that nature, the negative side, created all this stuff for the Caucasian to rule. This is how he maintained superiority, because the cycle of deception hit an all-time high when they came onto the earth, and it created all these systems for them to use in order for them to stay ahead of the game. But now that they've been 59 years later out of power, is now why China got them in the chokehold, right?
Yep.
And doing what they're doing, because that means you lost power. You not the champ no more. That's what that means. So nature is now punishing them for what they done. Watch how we get through this. A law of nature, by definition, is a characteristic of nature that causes action, reaction, stop action, or non-action of a person or place or thing in the same way each time that conditions are the same, continuously. A law is consistent, constant, the same way when given the same conditions. This quality, ability, and standard constitutes law, whether it be natural or man-made law. Likewise, a law is not a law without enforcement to the letter, and nature laws are enforced automatically by cycle, energy, and time. Therefore, when man-made law is not consistent and constant, it is application and enforcement the same way each time that conditions are the same everywhere. It is applicable, it is not law, but something else. A cycle of nature by definition is application and enforcement the same way each time that conditions are the same everywhere. It is applicable, it is not law, but something else. A cycle of nature by definition is a network of laws of nature able and designed to accomplish a complete circuit of actions and or changes by nature in a given time. The order, survival, tranquility, and well-being for the peoples of planet Earth, and that's what depend upon individuals and races of individuals getting back to the laws of nature and the positive and adhering to them. Let it be, remember, always let it be known.